Welcome, everyone. Today, we are focusing on the strategic implementation of account frameworks, the foundational architecture of corporate liquidity and control. Let's get started. Welcome to our deep dive into the strategic implementation of account frameworks. Think of your account structure as the intricate plumbing system of your global financial operations. What exactly is it? It is the deliberate, strategic organization of your company's bank accounts, dictating where they are located, what currencies they hold, and who ultimately controls them. When we look at the basics, a framework must seamlessly integrate with your business operating model and treasury staffing. Why does this matter? Because a flawed account structure silently drains your resources through excessive fees, trapped cash, and heightened operational risk. If you have hundreds of fragmented accounts, you lack visibility. How do we fix this? By undertaking a rigorous needs analysis, standardizing banking partners, and implementing targeted technology. In our deep dive today, you'll see that designing this framework isn't just an administrative task. It's a highly strategic exercise that dictates whether your capital is working for you or sitting idle. A well-architected framework directly lowers your cost of capital and acts as the foundation for enterprise-wide liquidity. Let's direct our attention to the flowchart on your screen, which maps out the foundational decisions required when designing a strategic account framework. At the very top, we start with the core objective, the account structure design. Notice how this branches out into several critical dependencies. The business operating model dictates the volume and nature of your cash flows, which then branch into your currency requirements. You must decide whether to hold accounts in local currencies for operational ease or centralize them into major currencies for liquidity. Furthermore, look at the nodes for culture and budgets. A highly decentralized corporate culture might resist centralized account control, requiring a phased change management approach. Finally, all these inputs converge into your treasury structure and staffing. Your team must have the bandwidth and technological capability to manage the framework you design. If you design a highly complex, multi-currency centralized structure but lack the systems or personnel to run it, the framework will fail. Moving to slide 2, let's explore a fundamental strategic dilemma every treasurer faces: prioritizing effective flows versus efficient liquidity. What does this mean? It's the trade-off between operational ease and capital optimization. The basics are simple. If your priority is making seamless, localized payments, effective flows, you will likely rely on a network of domestic banks with deep local reach. However, if your primary goal is maximizing available cash-efficient liquidity, you will consolidate funds into fewer, global bank accounts. Why must we choose? Because trying to maximize both simultaneously across 50 countries leads to massive structural complexity and skyrocketing costs. How do we make this decision? We align the account structure with our corporate KPIs. If you are a manufacturing firm with heavy local supplier payments, local flow efficiency might temporarily trump central liquidity. For our deep dive, recognize that as your treasury matures and you deploy overlay structures like zero-balance accounts, you can eventually bridge this gap, achieving both flow efficiency and optimal liquidity pooling. This visual diagram starkly contrasts the two primary drivers of our account structure. On the left side, we have the effective flows path. Notice how it leads to multiple domestic banks and localized, on-site account management. The goal here is minimizing payment delays and simplifying local reconciliation. On the right side, we see the efficient liquidity path. This route consolidates operations into a few global banks and centralizes the accounts, typically at a regional treasury center. It deliberately limits the number of accounts to prevent cash fragmentation. The central node, the strategic priority decision, represents the treasurer's mandate. You cannot design a framework without first establishing where your organization currently sits on this spectrum. As companies grow and upgrade their treasury technology, they typically migrate from the left side of this chart towards the right, prioritizing centralized liquidity to reduce external borrowing costs. On slide 3, we tackle the critical concepts of resident status and account ownership. What are non-resident accounts? These are local accounts held by an overseas entity that is legally incorporated elsewhere. The basics involve understanding your legal domicile versus your operating footprint. Why do we use them? Often, companies use non-resident accounts to bypass severe local tax inefficiencies, manage foreign exchange risks centrally, or comply with strict in-country clearing requirements while maintaining funds offshore. How do we set them up? By leveraging offshore financial hubs like Singapore or India's Gift City. Setting up a global/regional corporate treasury center in GIFT IFSC, for instance, provides full convertibility without capital controls and an attractive tax regime. Our deep dive takes us into account ownership. Who actually owns the account? Is it single ownership by the local subsidiary, joint ownership, or centralized ownership by the parent? The ownership structure you choose directly dictates your legal liability, your ability to execute cross-border cash sweeps, and your compliance with central bank rules. Let's examine this structural diagram demonstrating the flow and control of resident versus non-resident accounts. At the top, we have the global parent company, which exercises ultimate strategic oversight. Below, the structure bifurcates based on legal jurisdiction. On the left, we see the local subsidiary operating a standard resident account. This account is subject to all local regulations, capital controls, and domestic tax laws. Now, contrast this with the right side. Here, the global parent, or a designated regional treasury center, operates a non-resident account within that same country. Look at the data flow arrows. While the resident account is tightly bound by local operational constraints, the non-resident account allows the parent company to maintain direct control, facilitating smoother cross-border repatriation of funds and avoiding certain local liquidity traps. This structural design is a powerful tool for treasurers navigating highly regulated emerging markets. Slide 4 maps the evolution of account control, specifically looking at decentralized versus centralized structures. What is the starting point? Most growing companies begin with local in-country accounts under strict local control. The basics are that local finance teams open, operate, and manage these accounts independently. Why do companies outgrow this? Because while it offers immense local agility, it creates a terrifying lack of visibility for the global CFO. It breeds redundant bank fees, trapped idle cash, and fragmented risk. How do we evolve? The first evolutionary step is maintaining centralized accounts, but allowing local control. In this hybrid model, accounts might be domiciled in a major currency hub, like London or New York, but the local subsidiaries still execute the payments. Deep diving into this, while this reduces currency fragmentation and centralizes the actual cash, it still suffers from operational inefficiencies like time zone lags and complex paper-based banking mandates. To truly optimize, we must push further up the maturity curve. This flowchart illustrates the evolutionary transition from localized chaos to hybrid centralization. Starting on the far left, we have the decentralized model. Subsidiary A and Subsidiary B each interact strictly with their own local banks. There is a solid wall between them, no cash is shared, and visibility is zero. Now, follow the transition arrow to the right, to the centralized location/local control model. Notice the structural shift. Subsidiary A and Subsidiary B now hold their accounts in a centralized financial hub, perhaps a single global banking partner in a major financial center. The subsidiaries still hold the operational keys, they still initiate the transactions, but the money physically resides in a consolidated location. This subtle architectural change allows the global treasury to monitor the balances daily, paving the way for future automated cash sweeps and drastically reducing the organization's counterparty risk. We arrive at slide 5, the pinnacle of account framework's treasury-controlled centralization. What is it? This is the ultimate end state where the global treasury both owns and operates the centralized accounts for the entire enterprise. The basics involve stripping local subsidiaries of external bank accounts entirely, forcing them to route all transactions through the treasury hub. Why is this the gold standard? Because it grants absolute, real-time control over global liquidity, eliminating idle cash and slashing external borrowing needs. How is it executed? Through advanced structures like an in-house bank or physical cash pooling using zero balance accounts. Deep diving here, in an in-house bank model, subsidiaries hold virtual internal accounts. When the Asian sub needs to pay the European sub, no real money moves through the external banking system. It is merely a ledger entry on the Treasury's books. This framework annihilates external bank fees and completely insulates the operating companies from foreign exchange volatility by managing risk centrally. Observe the elegance of the in-house bank architecture displayed in this diagram. At the very top sits the Global Treasury Center, acting as the absolute financial authority and the only entity that interfaces with external global banks. Look at the subsidiaries below Sub A, Sub B, and Sub C. Notice that the lines connecting them to the Treasury Center are labeled virtual accounts. These subsidiaries no longer have physical checking accounts with local street banks. Instead, they deposit their collections and request their disbursements through the Treasury Center. The Treasury nets these massive internal flows against each other. Only the residual, net deficit or surplus, is ever traded or funded through the external global banks. This diagram perfectly encapsulates how strategic account design transforms Treasury from a passive cost center into a proactive, profit-protecting powerhouse. On slide 6, we bridge the gap between our account framework and technology via automation and APIs. What is it? It is the digitization of opening, closing, and maintaining corporate bank accounts and sweeping mandates. The basics involve moving away from filing cabinets full of paper mandates to a secure, digital portal integrated with your cloud-native treasury management system. Why is this critical? Because in a multinational corporation with thousands of accounts, manual mandates are a massive operational and fraud risk. Ex-employees often remain on bank mandates for months. How do we implement this? By utilizing standardized JSON payloads or XML messages transmitted securely via the SWIFT network directly to your banking partners. Let's look at the sample code use case on the screen. This is a JSON payload representation of an API call used by a TMS to instantly update an account's sweeping parameters. By treating account management as digital code rather than paperwork, Treasury achieves perfect compliance, unshakable audit trails, and instantaneous scalability. This technical flow diagram maps out the seamless integration of modern connectivity and API frameworks. On the left, we have the Corporate Treasury Management System, which acts as the master record for all account data and authorized signatories. When a change is required, such as adding a new signatory or altering a sweep limit, the TMS generates an encrypted XML message or an API JSON payload. Follow the arrow through the secure SWIFT/API gateway in the middle. This gateway ensures non-repudiation and bank-grade encryption. The instruction arrives at the Global Banking Partners system on the right, which automatically updates the core banking platform. A confirmation receipt is immediately routed back to the TMS. This closed-loop, straight-through processing eliminates human error, prevents unauthorized account modifications, and ensures your global account framework remains immaculately synchronized with your corporate policies. Slide 7 brings our concepts to life with a real-time use case, post-M and A account rationalization. Imagine your multinational completes a major acquisition. The acquired company operates a heavily decentralized, legacy treasury with over 200 redundant bank accounts across 30 countries. The problem: millions of dollars are trapped in idle cash, FX exposures are blind, and banking fees are astronomical. How does a strategic treasury respond? They immediately launch an integration management office to execute an account framework overhaul. The execution involves a ruthless rationalization process, closing 60% of those local accounts, migrating the remaining balances to a handful of core global relationship banks, and implementing automated cash sweeps into a master header account. The result: JP Morgan noted that by streamlining and rationalizing banking accounts globally, companies can identify over $500,000 in annual cost savings. This proves that account frameworks aren't just administrative, they are highly lucrative strategic levers to unlock trapped capital. Let's trace the transformation journey of our M&A case study on this flowchart. We start in the top red zone, the acquired entity. It is plagued by 200+ fragmented accounts and trapped, invisible cash. This represents severe operational risk and capital inefficiency. The transition begins as we flow down into the blue action nodes. The Treasury team initiates aggressive account rationalization, consolidating operations into a few strategic banking partners. This structurally enables the next node, centralized cash pooling. By linking the remaining accounts via automated sweeps, the previously isolated funds are aggregated. This leads us to the ultimate green outcome nodes, unlocking trapped cash and deploying that liquidity to pay down M&A debt. This visual is a powerful reminder that an optimized account framework is the primary mechanism for extracting financial synergy during a corporate merger. For our final slide, we must discuss sustaining the framework. An account structure is not a set-it-and-forget-it project, it is a living architecture. What does sustainability entail? It means conducting continuous reviews of your account framework against evolving corporate KPIs. The basics require annual audits of bank pricing, service levels, and signatory mandates. Why? Because businesses pivot, enter new markets, and face new regulations. Your account structure must flex accordingly. Stagnation leads to compliance breaches and fee leakage. How do you maintain it? By embedding regular scorecard evaluations into your treasury operations and maintaining open, strategic dialogues with your core banking partners. Deep diving into the future, as AI and real-time APIs become standard, your account framework will become increasingly automated and self-optimizing. I hope this training has empowered you to build a world-class financial foundation. I invite you to like, subscribe, and visit quicktechie.com for premium certification prep, including Q&A banks, full ebooks, audiobooks, full-length training, and interview guides. Our final diagram illustrates the continuous life cycle of account framework sustainability. It is a perpetual loop, ensuring your treasury architecture never becomes obsolete. We start at the top with strategic design, setting the initial account structures. This flows into implementation and integration, where accounts are opened and linked to your TMS. The critical phase follows, continuous measurement and audit. Here, you leverage scorecards and tracking to monitor performance, compliance, and fee structures. The insights gathered here drive the next step, refinement and optimization. You close redundant accounts, renegotiate pricing, and adapt to new tax laws. This refinement feeds directly back into strategic design, completing the cycle. By institutionalizing this loop, you guarantee that your corporate treasury remains a proactive, agile, and highly secure control tower for the enterprise. Thank you for your time and dedication to treasury excellence.